At 6:31, I'm going to call the Joshua City Council to order. 101 South Plain, Joshua, Texas. This is an open meeting subject to open meeting laws of the state of Texas. We do have it set up as a Zoom meeting. If you'd like to speak, there's a way you can click the speaker card and that will let us know that you want to say something. Or you can also email our city secretary and then she will pass that information along to us. We do have a quorum present. I'm going to switch up the order just a little bit. We're going to go to recognition of Councilman Jerry Moore for 10 years of service. It's been a pleasure. Jerry and I both started out at the same time, served together other than my little hiatus that I had. But the rest of the time we worked very closely together. Jerry's one that always valued his opinion, and it's always interesting on the council that you have people that are interested in different things. It's not like we're all specialists. Jerry was a big help for us with the ESD and some of the other issues that have come up. It's always been the steady hand, other than when we paid a visit to the ESD. But for the most part, it's been a real pleasure working with Jerry. Got a great family. Like I said, the son is usually even keyed in. I don't see him yet tonight. I think he's working. But we wanted to present something to you. I'm not going to try to put this together. I'll mess it up. But it's with our deepest appreciation.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
With our deepest appreciation, we hereby honor Jerry Moore with this award in recognition for your many years of visionary guidance, exceptional leadership, and unconditional commitment serving as a member of the Joshua City Council 2010 to 2020. And you'll actually be getting another one because if you'll notice, they misspelled hereby. Herbie. Okay. Well, another handshake.
Look over here. Oh, got hold of the mic. I look all Herbie. There we go.
You good?
Yes, sir.
All right. You got any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, before I go, I mean, just really, I appreciate everybody. Obviously, we all understand how taxing the job is. There's a lot of time and a lot of effort that goes into it. You know, and after a decade, you know, I can look back and see, you know, what's taken place. I can see that, hey, the city got its first, you know, park. You know, that's kind of started to set some stage to some future projects. You know, the fire station was a good long-term investment that we're starting to see some benefit there as we work towards our first staffing of that station. So I mean, there's some big opportunities that the city has continued. Our growth commercially that we've seen over this last decade is tremendous. I think one of the things that Josh brought to the table and just a little bit of a vision, understanding that we have, you know, ahead of us where the city's going to continue to have its best opportunities and growth is in housing. It's hard for us to imagine that. There's a lot of naysayers that don't want Joshua to grow. Well, we're part of the Metroplex, and we can't stop it. We can just try to obviously manage it. And that's where this council has to take the point in understanding that your decisions, albeit some tough decisions, are not for today, not for tomorrow, but for many years later. And that's the one thing that I think the council can really kind of continue to focus on. It's hard to make some of those decisions when you get those groups out there that we all know about, you know, that think we're trying to take their rights, we're trying to take their land, we're trying to take this and that. At the end of the day, that's not it at all. It takes a vision of a council to look that their decisions are 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road is what it has to be. I learned real quick getting into the council and time with Type B board, you know, before that, you know, this doesn't happen overnight. All the stuff that you're working on today, you may never even see come to fruition by the time you're completed with your term, you know, on council. And so I just challenge everybody on the council as we move forward that you guys take a visionary approach. And remember that in these next few years, there's going to be some very key decisions that are going to be very challenging and stuff. But again, sometimes minority will speak very, very loud. It's the soft majority that you need to work for and stuff. At the end of the day, you've got 7,000 residents out there that are counting on, hey, do we have a good police force that's getting the job done? Do we have adequate fire safety getting it done? Are the streets and the maintenance getting the job done and stuff? And that's all guidance by you on the council. That's how that does it. And I think our budgets have reflected that our focus has been on the important stuff. Always has been. And so I think, hey, it's been a good run, and I appreciate everybody that as you guys move forward. That's the only thing I'll just kind of leave that, hey, take a visionary approach, take it to the next step, and think that, hey, over the next decade, you're going to be able to look back and say, hey, we set the plan in motion that allowed Joshua to step up and be a safe place to live, a fun place to live, a place that, families can have good time growing up. And it's not weighing in on the schools, guys. We love our school district, okay? But that's just a very small part of the cog when we're talking this community and stuff. The city has a lot to do with what we see around it, not just the school district. The school district provides some stuff. And I challenge you guys, fight that, fight the county. Don't let them continue to, play as if they're innocent in all this. At the end of the day, there's only one organization, one group, one entity that did not provide any kind of tax relief. Right? That was the county. They did not lower their tax rate a point or anything. Okay? All the other cities did. We understand how it works. Property values go up, and so we can adjust that accordingly and all that. Yes. But the county sure didn't make any adjustments and stuff. So keep that in mind as you guys are leaders for the city, to let your voices be known at that level. And hey, as we move forward, our citizens deserve better, they deserve more and stuff. So hey, appreciate you guys. Good night.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. All right, already. Alice will read to you.
That's okay. You want him right here, Mayor, for you, or you want him back there?
I'll take back here.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You gotta get him that first.
all right.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you.
All right, so I give him this. All right.
Your picture. Yeah, okay, good. All right. There we go.
Really good. Now you gotta do the hard.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
You would raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Robert Fleming,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I faithfully
that I faithfully
execute the duties
execute the duties
of the office of City Council Member Place 5
of the office of City Council Member, Place 5,
for the City of Joshua,
for the City of Joshua,
State of Texas,
State of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws
and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of this state,
and of this
so
state.
help me God.
So help me God. All right.
Yeah.
Good having, sir.
Thank you. I will be the first to use that rack.
All right. Get a picture.
Thank you all for that.
All right, we're gonna go back to the work session now. And first item is review and discuss questions related to the budget report and financial statements for October. Does anybody have any questions on the financial report?
There was a item on here in salaries. It showed like almost 100% expenditure already. There's only like $2,400.
What was that?
Is it a personnel? The non-departmental personnel showing 62.42% of it already spent. Non-departmental personnel, what is that?
Yeah, we still have got some miscommunication with myself and the finance department about the categorization of accounts, specific accounts. So I couldn't tell you what that is offhand, because we don't have personnel non-departmental. So what's likely to have happened, and I did notice this, I was reviewing this today, is there's some specific account in non-departmental that in the categories in our fund view software, we categorize it as personnel when it's actually not. So,
So it'll be corrected.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just curious.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. Yeah.
Robert? Rick? No questions? Robert? No. Angela? Mike?
Just some of the larger expenditures that went out early, those were the upfront loaded ones that we discussed, right?
Yes,
That's
yes,
the
sir. So,
big things.
yeah, so a big one is, actually one that Joe brought this up in the question a little bit earlier this week, in the PD, right? So we have contract professional services. We had a very large expenditure in October that was even over what my seasonality is. And what that was is I had anticipated that we would actually process the new dispatch, or it's not new, but the dispatch fee we paid to the county in November. But we actually processed it at the end of October, so it got front loaded. So you would have seen this next month. But yeah, in October and November, but especially October, you're going to start seeing a lot of our annual service contracts and renewals and all that goes into October. Yeah, so you'll see that front loaded. I tried my best in software. There's these little calendar icons. You go in there and you change the periods, but you have to do that before the budget's adopted. So if once the budget gets adopted and we, in this case, process a payment before or after the month that I anticipated, then it's going to look a little odd. But as you get through that first quarter, it ends up evening out.
I was just clearing that up, because I remember you mentioned that it was possible what was going to show up. I thought that was
That's correct. That's exactly what that is.
Anybody else? None? Next item is review, discuss questions, and consider direction of prioritization of the street projects related to the 2019 bond. You want to talk about that, or you want me to?
Well, did everybody get a chance to read the staff report? Hopefully, we can just focus on some conversation and not have to go through this completely or word for word. But in a nutshell, when we first started the CIP process, and if you remember when I first arrived here, our charter calls for a 5-year CIP. We actually didn't have a formal one on the books, and 3 years ago, we finally got one on the books, and we utilized, you guys had some input, staff every November. Typically, starting in November, we do a facility needs assessment and facilities and equipment assessment. So we go through what equipment do we need, what vehicles what we may need. And we do a 10-year plan. So I ask everybody to do a 10-year plan. Now that's typically going to be your public works department, fire, and police, because we just don't have that much in terms of CIP. So we lump in our fleet maintenance, or our fleet, what am I trying to say? Replacement in CIP. Traditionally, fleet replacements are not seen in CIP, but we just go ahead and do that because of our budget size and how relative those one expenditures are to our budget size. So we go ahead and plan for that in CIP. And if you remember, $25,000 or over for one purchase for any of those gets put in the CIP and capitalized there. So when we started the process, we had the council at the time, staff members, obviously myself, Mike, and those department heads are referred to. And then we had actually a committee of volunteers, of citizens that help us prioritize some things. And we think as since we do this every day, we work with this stuff every day, we kind of know, but we won't got that citizen input. We had an advisory committee for that. That really informed the very first CIP. And as we've gone through that process, we update every year, starting in November. Once we get the facility assessment and equipment assessment completed, we update those cost estimates, okay? And there are a number of ways that we can do this, and we've done a number of different ways, but it's this year +5, this year +3 in terms of the cost increases for things. It really depends on what they are. Whereas the vehicle, if it's materials that we consider we're going to have to use to maybe make some street improvements. So it's not really a one, cookie cutter thing. It kind of depends on what we're talking about. But we do that at the beginning of every year, and then when you guys see, and we also do an internal staff reprioritization of those. And then what you guys see in usually April of every year is the CIP budget that, per the charter, we're supposed to adopt 90 days, at least 9 days prior to the operating budget. So that's kind of private mainly for Robert, but that's kind of gets everybody up to speed. So when we initially did the streets, Kristen has a grading matrix, right? A to F, this is very standard across this full asset management, a grading system of A to F, and basically every year he kind of identifies, we use that as a map to kind of determine where we're going to try to put our resources. We did the same thing with the CIP, and as we got to the point, as we did this year, where we retired some debt, we timed the bond, right? We did obviously the bond election last year, but we timed the sale almost a year later in August to time it to where we had retired some bonds, so we had virtually no impact on the tax rate. Now, a lot of that was, like I said, in the staff report, kind of limited to us. The council's, effort to have no impact on the tax rate really did limit how much we could go out for. $4 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is, and most things, but not when it comes to street improvements. So we had a very short list, right, on that bond proposal or proposed, and I want to make sure we remember that word, the proposed projects. We had 6 streets or street sections technically, and a piece of equipment. We already had a piece of equipment. So now what we did, we set up a 2-phase project here where we had Caddo Street, East 4th, and North Main Street, McMillan, and phase 1, McMillan, Thomas Street, and Wood Oak, of those 6 that were on the proposed bond package in those phases. And it was probably going to overlap the 2 fiscal years. Well, once we got the engineers really starting to look at things, we got the first phase estimates back, and it blew the budget. Now, what we'll say, I'm not going to have gone back and forth on this, not in an argument way, but brainstorming way. There's a lot of things on the estimate sheets that the engineer includes that it's kind of worst case scenario. They go out and see, obviously, everything that is usually included with a dramatic or an over or comprehensive rather improvement to a street, and they put it all down in the probable cost of those things. So in each one of these projects, you have the Main Street project, from 12th Street to 6th Street. You have about just the paving cost is 1.5 million, 1.6 million approximately, with another over 700,000 in what we call soft costs or non-paving costs, right? You have the Main Street, another Main Street, a different section, a different project. Well, it doesn't have those because we weren't going to need some of that stuff. Caddo, right? This is kind of the big one for us. The paving alone came back at $1.8 million. We have that at 1.2. Okay, when we did ours, but we didn't have all these other in so much detail that engineers typically can get into, and we certainly didn't have another almost $1 million of these soft costs. Okay, so when we do our internal estimates, so in the packet you've got 3 estimates from the engineer, and that's getting into the weeds, the research, the market process for things that they actually have direct access to, current projects and recent projects that they've used to provide these estimates. And then you have 3 internal cost estimates that we use to inform the CIP. So we actually redid our internal cost estimates to use more of their methodology, not nearly all the things that they list, but using more of their methodology. Like they use a 30% contingency, we use a 15%. And matter of fact, when the projects actually get big, engineers will probably lower that to 15%. But because of the current state of the economy and not knowing what's gonna happen or how many bids we're gonna get, you know, if there's another shutdown, they put that up at 30% just in case. But it's likely to come down, but you're still, we're only talking about, you know, it's several tens of thousands of dollars difference, but in the scheme of things, it's really not gonna make a whole lot of difference. So, as you can see, we went from about $4 million to almost $2 million in the overall cost. And then when you take out the soft costs I'm talking about, it's still around $8 million. It's double if you do all 6 projects. It's double the money that we have. So we're left with the decision. What project do we do? Or what project or projects do we do? Now, one thing that Mike and I have been, and I give Mike more credit on this in terms of the idea, and I actually agree with this as well, is it's unlikely, and I don't think it's going to be advantageous nor in the city's best financial interest to pay for right-of-way. Given that we're going to be improving the streets that serve these areas, you know, if they're going to be getting a brand new street, maybe, you know, that's their you know, civic duty or whatnot. If you get a brand new street, you just kind of provide the right-of-way for the city. That's going to save us hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to do that. And of course, that would be, you know, something I think if we go into one of these projects and we do not, you know, the right-of-way is not provided to us in order to do the projects, and I think the council would be justified, and frankly, I would recommend looking at other projects within the city to do, where we don't have to buy the right-of-way and we can still get the new streets in. So I think that's something the council is going to need to, you know, consider if and when that comes up. So that's the end of that. So really, when it's all said and done, we just need, you know, the money has already been approved, obviously. The streets have already been approved, obviously. So it's not so much a matter of you guys need to vote or approve or anything. We just really, as a staff, so we know what to tell the engineers in terms of where we start, what we put out for bids. Do we change the phasing? Do we mix and match? Do we just do one project? You know, what you guys, we just need some direction from you guys on where you want to kind of prioritize this money.
One thing, when we do these, will they be like, we'll put it out for a bid and one company basically will do everything on here?
There'll be a GC, there'll be a general contractor, and it's likely that just like a lot of other projects, they'll have subs, but you'll have one GC.
Okay, that's what I meant.
Yes, sir.
I was trying to think, I'd like to still charge the county again if that's possible, but probably not if we're going this direction. I would think the one, you know, the biggie on here is the one on Caddo, which serves the most houses, but that's also about the longest one too, isn't it? So
The longest stretch.
yeah, I mean, we may have to look at maybe just, you know, piecemeal it. I know one of the things when I was talking to Josh, trying to figure out one thing is why are we having to buy additional right of way? Well, we've got the new Heritage 2 addition that's going in, so what they're needing to do is to make that 3 lanes through that portion, so you can have a left turn lane. That way, you know, traffic's not being bottlenecked there. And so maybe we look at something like just do that section of the road. Maybe the rest of it, you know, we have to leave for a later time. And maybe look at the projects and see if there's portions of it that absolutely need to be done, like that Heritage 2 opening. And that way, maybe we can spread it out and get more projects done. Otherwise, I mean, spend it all on Caddo, that's it. I mean, pretty much that's the only one we can do. So that would be my thoughts, would be to go back and look at them and see if we could break them up into maybe smaller sections and at least try and get something on several of these streets that we were talking about doing.
Maybe hit the worst spots.
Yeah.
And the most, like you said, the extra turn lane, maybe hit the spots that need special attention on
Right.
those said streets. How's the right-of-way process gonna work? Is it gonna be something that we have to go out and notify everybody that would be affected and then request for right-of-way? What, is there gonna be any cost to us doing that? Is that gonna take?
Well, we're gonna have some cost just if we.
Clerical costs.
Yeah, right,
things like
administrative
that.
costs, yeah, fees and that sort of thing.
And then the process of deciding then if they want to purchase the right of way or not. And we just abandon that street. So we need to kind of figure out where we're at on that before we.
Yeah, so a lot of the due diligence heading into this is, do we have the right, you know, let's say, take Joe's idea for a section where we're gonna need to widen that, because Joe's right. We need more right of way in order to get the street, in order to widen the street in this case. And then one of these projects on the, well, like this East Fourth one, there's not any right-of-way acquisition because we already have, there's right-of-way preparation, but we already have enough right-of-way for what we wanted, for what the project is calling.
See, some of the projects you already know that you have.
We
enough.
are, yeah, it's not included in the bid, in the estimate, or the construction cost estimate, because we already have enough right-of-way to do the project.
Looks like Caddo's the only one where we have any right of way.
That
Yeah,
was
it's
really
a-
had to do that lighting section.
Yeah,
Is
it's a big chunk, yeah.
Is that right of way, would it be Heritage Two that would be given the right of way? Or would it be?
It's gonna be, it'd be both sides.
Both sides, it'd be both sides.
Now, some, when they actually did, so Heritage Two, they actually, well, let me take that back. So there, it's not, I want to make sure you kind of get a, in your mind's eye, it's not strips, straight strips down the entire both sides. Because when Heritage Two was platted, and then the north section of Mockingbird, which abuts Heritage Two, they had to dedicate right of way. Because this is, Caddo's is a, when we, and per our thoroughfare plan, it's a collector lane street. And so whenever development goes in, they have to give us 60 foot of right of way. But if there's anything, but unless it's developed and the right of way is not already there, that's the right of way we would have to actually acquire. So we're still gonna have, I would say, kind of legal costs in order to, for the instrumentation to make sure those things are put in place. But the overwhelming lion's share of that cost is would be if we have to actually pay the property owners for that. But like you were saying earlier, we would know, okay, are we going to be able to get the right of way for free, basically, and before we move forward on anything else.
Okay.
But there would be some costs associated with that venture too, though.
It would be internal costs.
And we can pay those types of fees with the bond money as well. If you remember, because we waited basically almost a year to issue and sell the bonds, we had passed a resolution to where before we had the bond money, we were paying out of the general fund, but then the resolution allows us to pay our general fund back through the bond once we had it. We started doing that. So all those fees are these bond funds are appropriate for those types of needs too. Yes, sir.
Josh, have we done traffic studies as far as which of these roads is the most traveled? Because maybe they don't serve that many houses, but that's where all the traffic is. The North Main is the.
Yeah, so a part of Kristen's grading matrix does include that. Now, we don't have a systematic or routine schedule where we do traffic counts. It usually comes when somebody wants people are speeding, doing a count. But we've done several on Caddo for a number of reasons. But when we know, especially when school's in session, and once they went back into campus, that street gets a whole lot of use. North Main is another one that, because of its feeding into downtown, and obviously with Wildwood going in now too, in the existing, Yvonne, what's the other streets over there, Wood Oak and all that kind of stuff. That existing, that's going to increase that. So we do have, I would call pinpoint traffic studies that we've done along the way for different reasons that we can glean off of, but nothing specific for these specific projects. But we have a pretty good idea already what the traffic counts are on most of these streets.
You else have anything? Robert? I have a question. So on average, the last projects that we've done, like I know on Edge Hill, part of that was a grant.
Right.
But on average, when we're getting road repair and stuff done, how many estimates are we getting from different companies?
Well, it really depends on what in terms of these large projects, those are going to be bids, right?
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
As an estimate? How many did we get from EPA? We didn't get what, 3 or 4 for
No, we only got one
One.
for the EPA projects. We normally get 8 or 10 easily,
Okay.
but the 2 projects that we're doing right now, the EPA projects, are so small in the grand scheme of things. A lot of places it wasn't worth relocating and setting up here. So
Gotcha.
How do y'all advertise the bids out there?
that? How would we advertise?
How do you advertise some people, a business that you see them?
Yeah, so by law, we put it in the newspaper. That typically for, it's a 2-week period that we have to advertise in the newspaper. We put it on the website. There's another, I can't remember what the term for it is, but there's also like it's not really a website, but it's like it's kind of like a Craigslist, to use an old term, kind of a Craigslist of available projects. Like we got a call from outfit out of New Jersey today because the bid for the Joshua Station project that we'll talk about at some point. Because the reason we're involved in that is because there's some public funds per that 380 agreement we're using to do some of those improvements. We put that in the paper, and then on the website we have a bid and proposals part that we post those on there as well. So
This on Craigslist?
no, there's a website, we don't run it, but it's a Craigslist type of list
Oh, okay.
where it's kind of like a running list of stuff, and so you'll get general contractors going there depending on what type of work it is, click on it, get the bid information, and contact whoever's on that bid notice. So the newspaper or the website is typically how we advertise for bids.
Would it be feasible to have Kristen go through, like on Caddo, okay, let's think about where we're gonna have the turn lane, and then say, okay, on Main, we need this section done. You kind of split these up into what the priorities within each of these road projects would be.
I think we could do that. We probably would need the city engineer to kind of do that in tandem with Kristen, because there's going to be a lot of technical, as you can tell by the estimates that the engineers put together. There's going to be some engineering parts of that while, lay people may see something, and Kristen has a lot of expertise in a lot of things, but as a layperson compared to the city engineer, we may see some things that's obvious to us that the engineer may say, well, we've got to include something, kind of an unforeseen or an intangible part of that. But we can certainly, kind of going with this idea of within the projects themselves and kind of getting a rough estimate on it, and then having the engineer maybe go over it with him to see if there's anything that's missing. Sure.
Or Kristen could at least identify, hey, this is the worst section of the street. We would want to do it as a piecemeal part and kind of split it up that way.
Yeah, and I think in terms of, I know in Caddo, we're talking a longer stretch, and so there are many more blocks, but if you, we don't, I think I have it on the staff report.
Like Thomas and.
Yeah, so we actually have, McMillan is a pretty good stretch. That's from 174 all the way to Bentley Drive. That's a pretty long stretch. We have the blocks located, for these, for the most part. And that is going to be where that F grade came in.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of have a jump start on what you're talking about, but we can certainly, within the overall project that the engineer's talking about, kind of match those together to see where those kind of high points are.
Yeah. So I think that'd help us, if we're going to piecemeal, and I think that'd help us make that decision as to which ones we need to prioritize.
Okay.
So you're kind of saying, go have him kind of look at it too, like y'all said, and take the project of Caddo, and say, prioritize inside of that one project, right? What might be the most important part of that project, looking towards traffic studies, looking towards, widening, things like that, would actually, hey, we can do away with maybe coming all the way to this, but we gotta do this.
Instead of doing block 100, block 500, only do block 100 to 200.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So
Where
that's
it's
the worst
needed.
part of it.
The worst, yeah. I got you.
Anybody else have anything?
Is just on a side note with the Heritage Street project, is 917, that's TxDOT, right? Is there any plans on TxDOT doing anything with 917 from 174 to the tollway to accommodate for the growth of the traffic that we're seeing?
Well, we're not aware of anything other than the railroad bypass.
Other than the railroad bypass.
The BMI. No, other than that, the Mockingbird Hill people who were connected to Heritage 2, that's been a very challenging thing for them, because they've gone back and forth with TxDOT and our engineer on the traffic impact analysis that they did, because of some sight lines. There's some hills out in that area. It kind of goes down a little deep, and so if and when there's going to be improvements in 917 to accommodate that, the developer is going to be the ones that's ponying up for that. So as it stands right now, some of their approvals from TxDOT and their drum approaches and other are hung up because of that issue. But in terms of TxDOT coming through there and doing it, we're not aware of any funds that they have for that.
I mean, they'll come in and resurface it. I mean, just like 174, about every
Right.
5 or 6 years, they'll come in and resurface it. They resurfaced 917, so they'll keep the road in good shape. Now, as far as expanding it, that's where you get into the major projects. That's just the normal maintenance item, is keeping the road in
But
good
we
shape.
do have to keep in mind, the reason, I mentioned the railroad project is because if and when that ever gets approved, that's gonna have a dramatic impact on the traffic by itself.
Sure.
They won't even necessarily need to widen 917 because now the traffic is flowing a lot easier. But that's just an educated guess.
Ready? All right. In the work session, we'll go into consent agenda. Consider approval of the minutes from the city council meeting held on October 15, 2020. It was in everybody's packet. We may have any questions on that.
Move we approve.
Second.
Motion by Robert Fleming, seconded by Mike Kidd to approve the consent agenda. Any other
Excuse me,
discussion?
Mayor.
What? Oh, Scott? All right. My ears aren't working on that. Motion by Scott Kimball and seconded by Mike Kidd to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Now going to the regular agenda. First item is to discuss, consider possible action on an ordinance ordering a runoff election for the purpose of electing council member for place 2. Alice has run some numbers. It was in the packet. We did use the county for the regular election back in November. I'm not sure it was all of it. Well, to be honest with you, I thought it was sort of a slap in our face that, we were lumped in with Burleson and everybody had to go to the same place, and yet every other precinct had 2 and 3 places that you could go vote. Alice called and asked for an estimate, and to do the runoff election, they're going to charge us $14,000. If we do it in-house, it's going to cost us about $4,000. So that's the consideration. She's also laid out in the packet the dates. We would be looking at a December 19th date for the election, and early voting would be starting December 2nd. So that's just right around the corner. She's got to get the ballots ordered, and she's checked, and we should be able to have all those back by the early voting date. She said what she will do this time, a little bit different from what we've done in the past, is that she will actually set up her office right out here in this area here, where this is where she'll office. So anybody coming in pretty much all day long, this portion will be open. We're going to deputize the 2 clerks, so they'll be able to come in, they'll be able to watch, see what's going on. So I know in the past there's been some question about that, and I think Alice has done a good job about trying to reconcile that. So
I'm going on vacation for during that point.
yeah. So anyway, that's the deal. Anybody got any
I went
questions?
out of town for that 2 weeks.
Vote before you leave.
Yeah. So anybody have any questions, concerns?
I think that's a good idea.
Save the money.
Utilize our space and our manpower.
Right, and save some money. I mean, because it costs us, how much did it cost for the general election?
We haven't got the quote yet. It was originally going to be around 10,000, but then the governor added an extra week, so probably 14 to 15,000.
So this will save us some money.
We're not going to use YMCA. or-
No, sir. Early voting will be here. Election day will be at the high school in the community room.
Robert, got a question?
Make the motion, we approve it using local resources and adopt this schedule.
Got a second?
I'll second.
A motion by Robert Purgle, seconded by Angela Nichols to approve the ordinance for the runoff election to be held on December the 19th. Early voting will be starting on December 2nd and running through December 15th. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I do have a question. You just said that on election day, it would be at the community center,
At the high school community
the
center.
high school community center.
Yes, sir.
If Is there any other runoffs besides our city runoff?
The only runoff there is just us. Mansfield is having one, but no one near us.
Okay, so why could we not have the election on election day here?
Normally you have it 2 locations. Early voting has to be where the early voting clerk is housed, so it would have to be here because my office is here.
Okay,
Election day, I'm not, we have election judge, so that's usually off-site where I'm at, and so that's why we use the high school.
okay, is there a cost associated?
There's no cost.
Okay, never mind.
I see here that you notated the mail-in ballots have to be received by with a postmark of the 19th. Is this gonna leave us enough time for mail-in ballots to be, because you said you still gotta order the ballots to get them in. How long will that take?
We will have everything prior to December 2nd.
So prior to December 2nd, so that'll be from December 2nd to the 19th for people to request them, receive them.
They have to request them by December 8th.
So they have.
That's when the application, I will send them out, then they have to have them back by the 19th. Now keep in
So
mind.
it's gonna be a kind of a condensed schedule.
Well, this schedule right here is exactly by the days we have to allow. I work very closely with Secretary of State's office on this. Now, keep in mind, for like military, people overseas, they have a little bit extra time, but this is the standard.
Fortunately, my son will be home during that time, so hopefully he can just walk up here and vote.
Right, anybody else?
It went through fine the last time. There wasn't a problem with that. I just wanted to ask that question because I know we do still have a contingency that are still serving or might be out of town.
Well, I think we got 284 requests or somewhere around that.
Yes.
And we got about 180,
132 returned.
132 that actually turned in.
And for people who's not registered to vote, and I'll start advertising tomorrow, if it's called tonight, they have until November 19th to register to vote in a runoff election.
Today is November 9th.
Oh, then, never mind.
I was getting ready to ask
Yes,
that
I know,
question.
there it is, yes.
All
So,
right, anybody else have anything else? All right, then we'll, all those in favor of the runoff election and dates that we've been given, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Next item is discuss, consider, and take possible action on council member to serve as mayor pro tem for a period of 1 year. Actually, it won't be 1 year. This will be till our June. Normally, every June is when we elect the mayor pro tem. Since Jerry was the mayor pro tem and he's outgoing, we need to have one from now till June. That way, we'll have the new council people or the old council people from the runoff election. And then there'll also be a May election where we'll be having some people come up. So that's why this will just be till June of next year. Do I have any-
I'd like to nominate Scott King.
a second? Anybody want to nominate anybody else? All right, we got a motion by Robert Purdom, second by Angela Nichols to appoint Scott Kimball as mayor pro tem until June. Any other discussion? All those in favor? You can vote. Opposed? All right, 7-0.
Scott raises his hand in opposition.
All right, I voted now, Scott. You take over. All right, adjourned. A public hearing on approving a planned development district and associated detailed site plan on a 1.234 acre tract of land located at the southwest corner of Joshua Station Boulevard and State Highway 174, and being located within the Joshua Station Overlay District with a land use designation of CR corridor retail for the purpose of constructing a mixed-use center for restaurant, personal service, retail, and medical offices. Staff, it will be Aaron. Aaron?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, a preliminary plat of the Joshua Station addition was approved in 2008. There have been numerous final plats and replats of this 44-acre tract of land since 2008, including the final plat of Lot 10. During that time, the name of the plat for Lot 10 was changed from Joshua Station Addition to Cypress Creek Addition. Regardless, it is part of the same preliminary plat that was approved in 2008. The subject property is referred to as Lot 6 as per the approved preliminary plat and will be platted as such. There was a planned development district and associated conceptual plan approved for Lot 10 Cypress Creek Edition. However, other properties within this preliminary platted area, as they develop, need to have the PD designation and a detailed plan approved prior to construction. The proposed development of this property is to allow for a Starbucks establishment, a medical office, and a small retail establishment. This proposal is for a multi-use structure consisting of 5,700 square feet. Of this total square footage, 2,100 square feet is slated as a Starbucks, with the remaining 3,600 square feet being used as medical offices and/or personal service or retail. The Planning and Zoning Commission on November the 2nd has made a recommendation to the City Council for approval of the Planned Development District and the associated detailed plan. Staff also recommends approval.
Thank you, Aaron. Is the owner online? I don't know. Is
Yes.
this Matt?
That's Matt.
Hey, Matt, would you like to say anything at this time?
Yeah, evening everyone. I'm here along with Jeff Martin, Director of Construction. We're both with the Retail Connection. Thank you to all the city council members and the mayor for having us. It's been a privilege working with Josh and his team for the last couple of years on this, and we're excited to get started on the project and with the city as a partner, add more businesses to the area.
Good. All right. Did we get any responses from anybody in favor or against?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
All right, and I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:18. The next item will now be to discuss, consider, and take action on the ordinance for this planned development district. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask of the developer?
Yes, I would. When I was reading through here, the exceptions that you were asking for the ordinance as far as like trees and fences and so on and so forth, the one about the fence between the private property and this retail business, have you talked to the owner of the other property, and are they okay with just using their fences, the fencing between them?
Who are you asking?
Whoever wants to answer it.
Yeah, we haven't had any direct conversation with them on using the fence, but because it's on the other side of that drive, felt that was the best, to keep the fence the way it was. As we develop in phases, it would be a little bit more of a challenge in terms of changing up the fence and kind of going as we go. And then we also get towards the south side, and we have the gas pipeline that we have to also consider in terms of what kind of structures we do over there. So that was the path that we took with our plans.
Well, part of that fencing being masonry or whatever is for noise abatement. We don't want the noise from the retail business going into that private area. So that's the only concern I would have about approving that type of a variance or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. We in terms of noise, in terms of the barriers to that, just the cars, the vehicles that are going through Starbucks, we have some screening that we're going to be doing, and then we have a pretty good distance from the drive then to the fence. So we feel that will be mitigated in terms of just the area that you have in between the buildings and when you get to the fence and the residential behind.
Thank you very much.
One thing too, I've talked with Josh about this week, seems like every project we've got coming up now is going into the JSUD issue, so we're actually looking into changing that ordinance so that we're not having to continuously do this. JSUD will not let you put any trees or anything, and their deal goes right along there. So luckily, TxDOT has been accommodating everybody, and so we're going to look at changing that portion of the ordinance going along 174 so that we're not having to bring this up.
Just so everyone's aware, in case you didn't have a chance to go through all this, we require street trees along 174. As he already referenced, Jason doesn't like that. They have their own special easement that nobody can touch. And TxDOT has been really generous in terms of doing these, very simple lease agreements. But Burger King had to do it in order to get the street trees. So we have a requirement that developers are having to meet. And then Jason comes in. This is what happened on DBAT as well. As well, they don't have the street trees per se. We went with shrubs to create the kind of same feel and screening for the parking. And so we kind of think, I just said, we may just need to fix it in terms of the ordinance. TxDOT, although they do allow some trees in there right away, they limit what types. And I don't know why crepe myrtle is okay and something else isn't, but they're okay with those types of things. But yeah, we're looking at cleaning that up so it speeds this very process up as well. So people aren't continuing to have to ask for something that we're probably have to give them anyway, at least for business development at 174.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion then.
I move we approve.
Got a motion by Scott Kimball and a second by Robert Fleming to approve the Plan Development District. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Well, good luck, gentlemen. We're looking forward to see a A-plus development going in, and we can't wait for you to get started. And I know there's a lot of people in town ready to use that Starbucks. So thank you. I appreciate your time tonight.
Look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, next item is discuss, consider, and take possible action on authorizing staff to act on a petition requesting the city to serve as the applicant for rezone the Littlebrook Estates. What this is historical. When Littlebrook came into the city and was annexed, at that time, we only had residential lots, which limits some of the things that you can do on your property. The city has since come up with an R1L designation, R1 large, that's for lots that are an acre or bigger. And this allows you to keep some animals and do some other things. Well, every lot out in Littlebrook meets that condition, but they can't do a lot of this because they're still designated as R, just straight residential. So they had come to us, and a possible fix to the problem was, instead of doing each individual property, we've done a couple of them out there where they came in individually, they paid the money, and we approved it to have them go together, and actually they will be paying for all of the cost of this, but we will approve it en masse. It will be for every property that's out there will automatically be designated R1L. I believe the last meeting we'd asked staff to contact the people. Some people just didn't want to sign, but they were really okay with it. They just, some people just don't want to sign. And so that's basically the history. We would be going through the zoning process. The folks in Littlebrook will pay 100% of the cost, and we will get this rezoned from R to R1L.
Because ultimately, we're doing a city-initiated rezoning,
Right.
but based off the property owner's request, and just saving people a lot of money and trying to speed it up a little bit.
Saving us some time. Instead of having to deal with 15 times.
And it just so everybody knows, the issue really has been is the use of the land and the size of the land and the zoning. Okay, so we've had this issue when it comes to livestock and keeping the livestock and the regulations. We have regulations in the animal control ordinance that dictate and regulate how many head per acre you can have, but you also have to have the right zoning in place because the zoning is going to determine what structures you're allowed to have, that you have to be able to hold the livestock, because we want them housed, we want them penned up. And so you have these two things go hand in hand. So you've got people that already have horses, specifically horses, right? You have people that want to bring in horses, but they can't right now because it's not zoned correctly, because they don't have a structure to house them in. And they would have to get it rezoned, be able to build the permitting process and that sort of thing. So this just will make it a lot easier out there. We aren't seeing a whole lot of new development out there, people coming in and building new structures. But every now and then we'll get one of those applications where somebody wants to put a barn up or something else. And because of the restrictions on R1 zoning, which is your standard residential zoning, those types of structures aren't allowed, because typically those zoned properties don't have a space. That's why we came up with the R1L. So this just makes it easier for everybody.
Do we have any questions?
Those lots that abut Trailwood and 917, those 6 or 7 lots there in the corner, Are those something different there?
Yeah, so everything that is highlighted is what is literally in Little Brook Estates Edition. And anything else that's not highlighted is not a part of that edition.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
All right. A motion by Robert Purdom, seconded by Rick DePreez, to approve staff to act on the petition requesting the city to service the applicant to rezone the Little Brook Estates. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is discuss, consider, and take possible action on board appointments. We've had a couple of people that applied. One of the gentlemen was James Gordon, was applying for, I guess, the planning and zoning, the type A or the type B. He actually does not live in Joshua. I don't know how everybody else feels, but you know, I think one of them was he was wanting to get on the type B. You know, that's our park board. I'm not sure why somebody that lives in Crowley wants to be involved. And I guess let me back up a little bit. The type A and the type B are both corporations. And according to their corporations, the way they were set up is you have to be a resident of the city of Joshua or in the county of Johnson County or within 10 miles of the city limits. Now, why it's that way, I believe we looked it up, it's because the state
That's correct.
requires it to be that way. It doesn't mean we have to accept, you know, those people. And I, for one, would say that I think we need to, you know, restrict it to people from the city of Joshua. This is going to be somebody that's, you know, asking about their parks and everything. And so that's my personal preference. I agree with that. Everybody okay with that? So we sort of dismiss his. Then the next ones that we have are Billy Ray Jenkins, which I think is somebody that Mike you recommended, and Jerry Moore. We have one opening.
Who's Jerry Moore?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he just moved here. But since Robert has come off, we have an opening. I would suggest that we make Mr. Jenkins the member and then slot Jerry on there as the first alternate. Pretty much every time we have a P&Z meeting, we need the alternate. And then at some point in time, we could move Jerry up. Merle is also an alternate, and he's been to almost every one, but he's also on the type B, so we would move him down to second alternate and make Jerry the first alternate. Then if we do have an opening later, we could move Jerry up.
Yeah, that would be consistent with the council's decision to try to limit one person per board.
Right.
In the past, we've had to have people, especially Merle, has always been such gracious in this time, wanting to help, but he's had to settle multiple things. So it's kind of a better idea to make sure we have different minds on separate boards. So this would be consistent with that policy as well.
I agree. That's a good idea.
So if everybody's okay with that, we need to have a motion to appoint Mr. Jenkins to, is it replace? Are we assigning him to a particular place?
It'd be to replace Mr. Fleming.
Okay. To appoint Mr. Jenkins to replace Robert Fleming and Jerry Moore to be the first alternate.
So I make a motion.
All right. Have a second? A motion by Mike Kid, second by Angela Nichols to appoint Mr. Jenkins to the Planning and Zoning Board, make Jerry Moore the first alternate. Is there any other questions, discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next is discuss, consider, and take possible action on request for an extension for construction days on the EPA Oak Hill Street project. What they're requesting was there were some rain days. I guess when they got into the project, they had to relocate the sewer and water lines, and that wasn't in the original estimate. Some holidays. Mike, you got anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, they're all justified days. We've tracked the rain days. The water and sewer line was no fault of their own. It just took some time for Jason. They weren't exactly sure where the line was. As it turned out, the water line would be actually in the concrete pavement itself, crossing that creek, and they didn't want to do that, nor did we, so we went through and we had to give them time to get that stuff moved. They are finished with one project, 100%. I'll tell you, the one on Edge Hill is completely done, so they're trying to get this wrapped up, but they're in the part of it that takes time. We're building those gabion baskets, and that just takes a little time to.
The Edge Hill project, will do.
They did a very good job.
I've got several comments
Yeah, we've
about
had
how pleased everybody are.
Compliments, you mean.
All of them, how pleased with it they
Yeah,
are.
it looks real nice.
It's real nice.
I know it was a difficult process getting through it, which we're gonna see in the street projects. We're gonna see that difficult process, if we could just.
Well, this one was made more challenging, just having to go through the EPA, there's the federal, people think our bureaucracy is bad.
And like I said, one concern I had is I guess everybody, or some of you may remember, we had an issue with a contractor out at Mountain Valley that, went about a year past the deadline. This is not the same company. Mike says he thinks these people will be.
Not quite a year, Mayor.
Yeah, well, it was close.
It was a lot.
363
As Josh would
days.
say, I like to
Okay.
expand on things a little bit, so. But, Mike assures me that, they're well within their timeframe, that if we gave them all these days, they're gonna be finished way before that time. And like I said, they've done a real good job of everything they've done for us.
I move we extend.
I'll say.
Got a motion by Scott Kimball, seconded by Mike Kidd, to approve the request for the extension for construction days of the EPA Oakville Street project. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next is staff reports. Does anybody have any questions on any of the staff reports? Going once?
Trying to find it here. Hang on a second. Still have a big disparity, big difference between the number of traffic stops and the number of citations. I know not every traffic stop requires a citation, so on and so forth. I just about got T-boned pulling out on the 174 2 days ago. People just flying down 174. And I've seen them have people pulled over. I don't know if they're writing tickets or not. I don't stop and ask. But enforcement on 174 needs to increase. People pulling out from these stoplights and these other streets without lights. I mean, you're taking your life into your own hands getting out on 174 at certain times of the day. So it's getting bad. It's getting really bad. So, and the other day when the light was out, I saw 4 people almost get T-boned at the light when light was with. Now, is that considered in Burleson? Is that a Burleson traffic control point at 174 and Country Club?
No idea, because our city limits are on the, north side of the road, come down and cross, is it on the, no, we have the intersection.
We've been working.
Well, the reason I say that, because I've been seeing Burleson PD, we have that intersection a lot lately, so maybe up this.
Yeah, a lot of the crashes that they have there, I don't know why they end up just north of the intersection.
Because they're getting hit, because they're flying north and pushed into the north side of it. I know what's happening. So, and the reason I asked that is one day I was talking to one of our officers about an accident that happened on 174 right in front of DBAT. And hey, that's not our accident, that's Burleson's. Well, it was in the road right there at DBAT, in the ditch right there. I figured that was a city accident. No, that's Burleson.
The roadway is Burleson's up to your
Up to
the intersection of Cobb. So, yeah.
We've got to start slowing down this traffic on 174. It's
we
getting
put
horrible.
speed bumps in.
So,
I mean, it's 55 miles an hour. The area you're talking about is
Yeah.
55.
hey, I would be opposed to making it 40 from the top of the hill, 45 from the top of the hill all the way through. You pull out there. You pull out.
It's like, they don't even pay attention to it.
Nope. They don't care whether it's red, green,
No,
purple, orange.
No turn signals, jumping through lanes.
So it's getting bad.
Anything else, Scott?
No, thank you very much.
I do think it's Rick, you got any questions on reports? Robert? No. Angela?
No.
Mike? All right. Then at 7:36, we're going to go into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Chapter 551, Subchapter D. City Council will recess into executive session to discuss the following. Section 551.074A1 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate the employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee with the city name.
Okay, Mayor, I'm gonna put everybody in a waiting room.
Okay?
Hi, Terry.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, I have a question. I was watching Burleson City Council meeting the other night, and they actually require a motion and a second and a vote to go into executive session. Is that a?
No, there's no requirement you do that at all. There have been cities, for example, that make a motion and have a second to go into a public.
Okay,
All right, we're going to reconvene in open session. We have no further business. We're adjourned.
Land for the slaughter.